This is the best of the week on Relevant Radio.
I'm the stereotypical guy you're talking about. I've been in the tattoo business for 28 years, and I'm totally covered up with tattoos.
I will wave my hands, and all your tattoos will be gone. You'll go right back to the unmarked body that you once had, or you can stay as you are. Would you do it, or would you stay as you are with all the tattoos?
I would.
I do not judge you if you have a tattoo. I do not condemn you. I do not look down upon you or anything like that. So if you have a tattoo, and I'm going to share this story with you, please don't think that this is in any way an attack or anything on you or anyone who has a tattoo. But it raises an important question. I myself don't have any. I'm not in favor of tattoos. I'm just going to put my cards on the table. I don't think it's a good choice to make. In this case, it's extreme, and you're going to see why in a second. It's extreme. It's taking it to the farthest edge of the spectrum of what would be considered normal tattoos. It goes way beyond that. But it does raise the question, if you ask me, is it a good idea to do it in the first place? Because what about regrets later? In this case, this is a woman who has 800 tattoos. This is not a joke. Her name is Melissa Sloan. She's 46. She's in the UK. And she says she can't even get a job cleaning toilets because nobody will hire her. You have to see the picture to believe it. I mean, she's got every square inch of her skin tattooed. And her complaint is that she can't get a job. So here's how the story reads. I can't get a job, Sloan bluntly told the Daily Star. I applied for a job cleaning toilets. They won't even give me that because of my tattoos. People have said I have never had a job in my life, but I have had one once and it didn't last long. She's a mother of 2 children. So she said, if someone offered me a job tomorrow, I would go and work. I would take that offer. She started getting tattoos at the age of 20, and she became hooked, despite her struggles with employment. She said that she gets as many as 3 new inkings a week because she says she's addicted. She says, if I make it to 70, I'll still be getting them. Every bit of skin will be covered, even if I'm turning blue. My face is already turning blue. And she's right. She says, I look like a Smurf. Well, she's right. She has a particular penchant for facial tattoos and has no bare skin left on her visage. She's inked over old tattoos 3 times. She's created multi-layered collages of tattoos across her face. She says, I probably have the most tattoos in the world, and if not then, at the rate I'm going, I probably will have them in the end. I keep going over and over them. I mean, what do you say to somebody like that? She says people make snap judgments about her because of her facial tattoos. Well, duh. So she can't work. She's been banned from a local pub and from her children's school. They don't want to see her there, and this is because of the tattoos. But she's defiant. She says she's not going to back down. She says, I'd like to be a record holder. It's just something different. I'm trying to get into the Guinness Book of World Records. The point is, here, basically 2 points. The reason I bring this up, because it is, as I say, it's extreme. It's not typical, far from it. But it does raise the question, number one, is getting a tattoo, does it change the way people look at you? And I don't mean like, oh, I see that person has a tattoo. What I mean is, are there other people, I'm not one of them, by the way, who look down on you? Is it possible that getting a tattoo, even if it's just 1 or 2, might cost you a job? Is it wise to do that to your body? Even if for you it's really cool, but it's going to shut a door in your face that might mean you don't get a job. Or maybe, for the longest time, as I understand it, I never served in the military, but for the longest time, as I understand it, you couldn't get into the military if you had tattoos. You could get a tattoo while you were in the military, apparently. But if you were all tatted up, or if the tats were visible, that would be a deterrent to being able to enlist in the military, as I understand it. Now, the military people can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's the case. And I think it recently changed. So as now, because the military branches are having a very difficult time meeting their quotas. In fact, they're not meeting their quotas. They're falling below their quotas, their targets for enlistment, and it's a real problem. So they have been lowering some of the standards to make it easier for people to qualify to get into the military. And I think tattoos is one of them. But as I understand it, one of the reasons, if not the reason, that the military had this barrier to enlistment if you had tattoos was it seemed to suggest bad judgment. And it seemed to suggest that somebody might not make good decisions, and the tattoo, whether rightly or wrongly, whether this is legitimate or justified or not. There are people, like in the military, at least formally, and other employers, who would look at that tattoo and say, that's a monument to poor judgment. So that's one reason why I raise this issue, just because tattoos are such a popular thing nowadays, would be, is it in your best interest to set yourself up for a certain amount of that in your life if a certain amount of people in your life are going to look at you and say, no, I'm going to pass, or who's the next candidate in line? Because that could be easily interpreted by them as a monument to bad judgment. Let's go to Diana in Montclair, New Jersey. Hi, Diana.
Just wanted to ask what your thoughts are on people who have tattoos of the Blessed Mother or our Lord Jesus Christ, or, like a portrait of their child when the child was a baby, something like that. And, it's not a bunch of them. It's just one or two done with an intent to honor the subject of the tattoo.
I respect people who make a deliberate choice to do that if they want to show honor and glory to the Lord, if they want to evangelize. I've heard that many, many times. People say, men especially, I got these tattoos on my forearms or whatever so I can evangelize my peers because they see Jesus or Mary. I respect that. I certainly don't judge people. I don't agree with it. It's not something I would do, but I don't condemn or look down upon or judge negatively people who do that for a reason like that. It's not what I would do.
Yeah.
I have space in my world for people who make that decision. I guess that's the best way I can answer it. How about Hailey in Cooksville, Tennessee?
I have a funny story. When my husband and I were engaged, I had a lot of friends who had beautiful tattoos, very well done, very special to them, mementos of occasions, things like that. And so I was thinking, I might want to get a tattoo, mark this time in my life sort of thing. And as I was talking about it with my then fiancé, he's very easygoing and doesn't really cause conflict at all. We don't really, but he was very stick in the mud about this. Don't get a tattoo. I really don't want you to get a tattoo. And I was very surprised and amused. And I thought, later on, I'll just do it. But now, 10 years later, I am so, so glad that he was such a stick in the mud about it, because now I'm like a special person. I'm 32 and I don't have any tattoos. I'm like unique.
You're
amazing.
Angelic. You're untouched, unmarked.
Yes. And so I thought that was funny and I wanted to share.
So true confessions now. Okay, Hailey.
Yeah.
When you meet people, see people, and they have tattoos, does it change your impression of them? Do you secretly judge them? Do you feel like, or not? Or are you just the equivalent of colorblind, where you don't even see it? It doesn't matter one way or the other to you. Or do you secretly kind of go,
It depends on what the tattoo is. But then again, tattoos last forever and people change. So
that's for sure.
It's hard to judge people on their tattoos when I've changed so much in the last 10 years. And if I had gotten that tattoo that I wanted to, then people might be judging me right now. So
that's a good point.
Yeah, I think it depends.
Let me take this question in a slightly different direction, because you say you're 32. So you're in that demographic. You're right in the middle of that demographic, I think, of people who are attracted to tattoos. So two questions. One is your perception, would it be consistent with my own? And that is that this is extremely popular among young people in general, and that many, many young people have tattoos. Would that be a fair statement?
Yes.
So my second question leads from that one, and that would be, does the person, man or woman, and you're one of them, who doesn't have a tattoo stand out in the minds of his peers, all of whom are tattooed? What is their reaction to somebody who doesn't have a tattoo? Like, oh, wow, why don't you have a tattoo? Is it like that? Or did they ever ask you about it? You know what I mean? How do they look at people who don't have tattoos now?
Well, I don't really much hang out with people my age now.
Okay.
I have 3 children, so
You're busy.
I'm usually at the playgrounds hanging out with moms, or at church hanging out with septuagenarians who are my friends now. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I suppose I don't hang out with people my age precisely for that reason. I don't have much in common with them.
That's a good point.
So I don't really know, to be honest.
That's a fair answer. I'm just curious, and maybe somebody else will be able to shed some light on it. If the person now that it's gone so far in the direction of getting tattoos and so many people have them, I wonder to what extent the person in that peer group who doesn't have a tattoo sticks out, is noticeable. Let's get to Sam in Ohio.
When I was in the retail business, I was a Chevrolet dealer in San Clemente, and I had we had problems in hiring employees, and I didn't want tattoos to show up. This is in the early 80s, in the middle 80s.
So your salesmen and women, if you hired them, their tattoos, if they had them, couldn't be visible. Is that right?
Yes. So I went through our attorney, and we put in the employee handbook not to be exposed. I didn't care if people had tattoos. I just didn't want them to be exposed on their neck, on their arms, or wherever, so to be offensive to maybe any potential customers that might come in. I mean, it was, but the attorney says you had to have that. I had to have that printed in my employee handbook. I'll
bet you nowadays in California, I don't know, but if I had to guess how far things have deteriorated in the state of California, that might be illegal now to not hire somebody because of a tattoo. I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised. Back to the phones. Let's go now to Lewis in Illinois.
So I had gotten a tattoo in '73 when I was 15 years old. Living, lifestyle. And, I got a home, they call it a home scratch now of a marijuana leaf. And I'd taken a lot of grief over it for years. And on my 18th birthday, I went and I had it covered up. Mm-hmm. Well, I straightened out my life years later, and I became a surgical assistant. And at the time, I had learned that tattooing was the number one cause of the spread of hepatitis C.
Interesting.
And I'd known several people that had got it, and one guy had died from it. As I was doing my job, we had a young woman come in that was a murder victim, and we were doing an organ harvest on her, and all the teams had come in, and it was, take her organs, and it's pretty intense procedure. They took off all the sheets and stuff and found that the young lady had a fresh tattoo, still all scabbed, and that was the end of it. They had to stop the organs from reaching their destination because they worried about hepatitis and AIDS, and all for naught. And I can think the only thing that good came out of it is I was able to pray over her as they, were turning off the life support machines.
Wow.
So I've been against tattoos for a long time, to no avail. All 4 of my kids are all tattooed, and it's very tragic if you ask me. So
it sounds like it.
But that's my experience with tattoos.
Well, that's a grim, sounds like a Stephen King novel in the making or something. Well, first of all, my hat's off to you if you can handle that. Most people can't. I certainly can't. But you're raising an important point that a lot of people probably don't think about, is that if they are interested in being organ donors, from what I'm understanding you to say, if you have a tattoo, that could block that from happening, right?
That's right. There's a certain period of time that and I'm not sure what it is anymore. This is probably 20 years ago at least. And okay. I don't know what the waiting period is. But, and I could just think that, the parents most likely, approved the organ harvest, and then something couldn't come out of that either, So
I hear you, Lewis. I do. I really do. So thank you. It's an unpleasant topic to think about, but it's real. Let's go to Dan now in Minnesota. Hi, Dan.
Hey, I'm this stereotypical guy you're talking about. I've been in the tattoo business for 28 years, and I'm totally covered up with tattoos. No facial tattoos, no hand tattoos, but my legs are covered from the neck down or from the waist down. And, some of the most popular tattoos are religious tattoos, for a while.
Yeah, what was your motivation? You obviously have a lot of them, so it's more than just a passing fancy, right? You have a reason for getting all these tattoos.
Well, my father was a Navy man during World War II, and he was covered up with tattoos. And so my mother really never had much of an opinion about it. And then I was offered a chance to become a tattoo artist. So I did that, and that was my only income for 28 years. But
Wow.
I am retired now through health problems. But
Let me ask you, Dan, are you Catholic or Christian in any sense?
yes, I was an altar boy. I went to Catholic schools through 6th grades.
If you could do it all over again, if I could say to you, Dan, I will wave my hands and all your tattoos will be gone. You'll go right back to the unmarked body that you once had, or you can stay as you are. Would you do it, or would you stay as you are with all the tattoos?
I would do the tattoos, but I would do different tattoos.
So you'd keep them. If I could give you a choice between going back to no tattoos, you'd keep them, right?
Yes.
All right, Dan, gotcha. Like what you just heard? Share it with your family and friends. And thanks for listening.